When sports journalist Marcus Gaines confronts Michael Jordan about Chicago Heights, 1987, in the lobby of Chicago's Drake Hotel, he expects denial, anger, perhaps even threats. What he doesn't expect is Jordan's quiet response. "You have no idea what you're digging into." The calm words, tinged with what almost seems like relief, catch Marcus off guard. As security escorts him away, Jordan's unexpected reaction is captured on dozens of phones, immediately going viral and igniting fierce debate across social media. The confrontation thrusts both men into the spotlight: a determined reporter seeking justice for his father's gambling losses, and a basketball legend who may have carried a devastating secret for 30 years. What really happened in Chicago Heights? Why did Jordan's childhood friend Darius Washington die under mysterious circumstances? And why does Jordan almost seem glad the secret is finally coming out? As Marcus digs deeper, he discovers a truth far more complex than the scandal he imagined. One that will force him to question everything he believed about his father, about Jordan, and about the thin line between justice and redemption. Marcus Gaines wiped his sweaty palms on his pants for the 5th time in as many minutes. The gleaming marble lobby of the Drake Hotel felt too bright, too exposed. He checked his watch again. 2:47 p.m. Michael Jordan was scheduled to arrive at 3 hours for the annual Chicago Children's Hospital fundraiser. 13 minutes to change his life forever. The manila envelope burned in his inside jacket pocket. When it had arrived at his desk yesterday, no return address, no note, Marcus had almost tossed it into the trash with the other fan mail and tips that flooded the Sports Chronicle offices daily. Something made him open it. Maybe the weight of it. Maybe fate. The photographs inside were grainy but clear enough. A younger Michael Jordan, unmistakable even then, in a run-down gym with wood-paneled walls. The Bulls star surrounded by unfamiliar faces, playing in what was clearly not an NBA game. Handwritten scorecards, betting slips with Jordan's name and specific performance metrics circled. And at the bottom of the pile, a newspaper clipping about a young man's death in 1989, with Jordan attending the funeral. Chicago Heights, 1987, was scrawled across one of the photos. Marcus had been chasing this story for years without knowing it. His father's gambling addiction had torn their family apart when Marcus was just 10 years old. The Bulls should have won that game, his father had muttered over and over, staring at the TV as the bank took their house. Jordan missed shots he makes in his sleep. "Sir, can I help you?" Marcus blinked. A hotel security guard eyed him suspiciously. "I'm with the press," Marcus said, flashing his credentials. "Waiting for the Jordan event." The guard nodded but kept watching. Marcus moved to a leather chair in the corner, trying to look casual. His phone buzzed. A text from his editor. "Layla, are you really doing this? It's career suicide." He didn't respond. Layla had always protected him, mentored him from rookie reporter to senior sports journalist over 15 years. She thought he was throwing it all away on a conspiracy theory. Maybe he was. The hotel's revolving door spun, and a ripple passed through the lobby. 2 security men in dark suits entered first, scanning the room with practiced eyes. Then came the entourage, assistants, personal staff, a few people Marcus recognized from Jordan's business team, and then Michael Jordan himself. Even at 62, Jordan commanded the room instantly. 6'6" and still fit, he walked with the same grace that had made him the greatest basketball player of all time. His suit probably cost more than Marcus made in 3 months. Marcus's mouth went dry. 15 feet away stood the man whose poster had hung above his childhood bed, the man whose shoes Marcus had begged his parents for every Christmas, the man whose games Marcus's father had bet on and lost everything. Now or never. Marcus whispered to himself, rising from the chair. He moved quickly, before the security team could reposition. 3 long strides brought him directly into Jordan's path. Behind him, Marcus heard a security guard shout something, but it was too late. "Mr. Jordan?" Marcus said, his voice steadier than he expected. Marcus Gaines from Sports Chronicle. Jordan's smile was automatic, practiced, the same one he'd used in thousands of fan encounters. He started to extend his hand, then froze as Marcus spoke again. "I need to ask you about Chicago Heights, 1987. The change was instant. Jordan's eyes, always intense, narrowed to laser focus. The smile vanished. For a split second, something flashed across his face that Marcus had never seen in all his years of watching Jordan. Fear. "I don't know what you're talking about," Jordan said, his voice low. "I have photos, betting records. I know about Darius Washington." Security was closing in now. A large hand gripped Marcus's shoulder. "Sir, you need to step back." But Jordan raised his hand, stopping the guard. He leaned in closer to Marcus, close enough that Marcus could smell his cologne. "You have no idea what you're digging into," Jordan said, his voice almost a whisper. But it wasn't threatening. It was something else, something that made Marcus's certainty waver. It almost sounded like relief. Then the moment broke. Security surrounded Jordan, moving him toward the elevators. Another guard firmly steered Marcus toward the exit. "You're being asked to leave the premises, sir." But Marcus hardly heard him. He was watching Jordan's retreating back, the slight slump in those legendary shoulders as he entered the elevator. And he was replaying those unexpected words in his mind. "You have no idea what you're digging into." Not a denial, not a threat, something else entirely. As the guard escorted him through the revolving door, Marcus noticed the phones. At least a dozen hotel guests and onlookers had their smartphones out, recording the confrontation. One woman was already typing furiously, probably posting to social media. By the time Marcus reached the sidewalk, his own phone was buzzing continuously. Layla, other reporters. The video was spreading. There would be no turning back now. He walked to the corner and hailed a cab, his mind racing. The investigation that had consumed his nights and weekends for months had just exploded into public view. The theory he'd pieced together from his father's ravings, from old betting records, from the statistical anomalies in certain Bulls games from the late 80s, it was all real. The greatest player in basketball history had a secret, and after 30 years, Marcus Gaines was going to expose it. As the taxi pulled away from the curb, Marcus looked back at the Drake Hotel. For a moment, he thought he saw Jordan watching from an upper window, but then the figure stepped back, disappearing behind the curtain. Like the truth, Marcus thought, always just out of reach. He opened his phone to find 67 notifications. The first was a text from Layla. "What have you done? Get back to the office now." The second was a Twitter alert. Jordan's secret was already trending. The ambush had worked, but Marcus felt no triumph. Just the strange hollowness that comes when a moment you've imagined for years finally arrives. And as the taxi merged into Chicago traffic, he couldn't shake Jordan's words or the look in his eyes. Not anger, not fear. It had almost looked like Jordan was glad the secret was finally coming out. Chicago, 1987. The ball left Michael Jordan's fingers in a perfect arc. It swished through the net without touching the rim, like so many shots before it. The small crowd packed into the Chicago stadium erupted, but Michael barely heard them. At 24 years old, he was already learning to turn the roar of thousands into background noise. "That's game," he said simply, turning to Darius Washington with that famous grin. Darius tossed him a towel and shook his head. "Man, that's the third time this week. Those Boston boys still having nightmares about you?" Michael laughed, but his mind flashed back to the playoff series against the Celtics just a year earlier. 63 points against the best team in basketball. Even though the Bulls lost, that game had changed everything. Larry Bird had called him God disguised as Michael Jordan. The pressure had been building ever since. "Let's get out of here," Michael said, heading toward the tunnel. "Too many eyes." Darius nodded, understanding immediately. They'd been friends since they were 10 years old, shooting hoops on cracked concrete courts in Wilmington, North Carolina. When Michael got drafted by the Bulls in 1984, Darius had followed him to Chicago, taking a job at a local car dealership. He was the one person Michael could still be himself around. In the locker room, reporters circled like hungry sharks. The Bulls had just lost their 5th straight game, despite Michael's 45 points. "Michael, does it frustrate you carrying this? Team night after night? Jordan, do you think management needs to get you more help? MJ, are you worried about your ankle after that hard fall?" Michael answered each question with practiced patience. At just 3 years into his NBA career, he had already mastered the art of saying nothing while seeming to say something. A TD. Bulls were struggling at 11-17, but Michael was averaging almost 37 points per game. Chicago's hope rested entirely on his shoulders. Later, as Michael's red Ferrari pulled out of the stadium parking lot, Darius fidgeted with the radio dial. "You don't need to stick around tonight, D," Michael said. "I know you got that date with Shanice." Darius's face darkened slightly. "Had to cancel. Some things came up." Michael glanced over. In the glow of the dashboard lights, he could see tension in his friend's face that hadn't been there a few months ago. "Everything okay? You need money or something?" "Nah, man, I'm good," Darius said quickly. Too quickly. "Just some stuff at work. Hey, you know what you need? A night off from being Michael Jordan." Michael laughed. "And how exactly do I do that?" "I know a place. Down in Chicago Heights. Just some guys playing ball. No cameras, no reporters, no fans asking for autographs every 5 seconds. A pickup game? Are you serious? These ain't just any pickup games. Good players. Guys who played college, some overseas pros, 1 or 2 who almost made the league. They go hard." Darius paused. "And nobody would expect to see Michael Jordan there. You'd just be another player." Michael considered it. The idea was appealing, just basketball, without the weight of the franchise on his shoulders. Without the endless questions and expectations. Who runs these games? Guy named Victor Caston. Owns some businesses in the Heights. Nice gym, closed to the public. Real wooden floor, not that concrete stuff we grew up on. Michael drummed his fingers on the steering wheel. "Sounds like you've been going without me," Darius shrugged. "Once or twice. They're good runs." Something in his friend's voice made Michael look over again. "This Caston guy? He on the level?" "He's just a businessman who loves basketball," Darius said. "Come on, MJ. When's the last time you played just for fun?" Michael couldn't remember. That was what decided it? All right, but we keep it quiet. Last thing I need is the front office hearing I'm playing extra games with my ankle. Darius grinned, but Michael noticed it didn't reach his eyes. The gym in Chicago Heights didn't look like much from the outside. just a plain brick building behind a furniture warehouse. But inside, Michael was impressed. Full court, polished hardwood, professional backboards. About 30 men were scattered around, some stretching, some shooting, some just watching. When Michael walked in, the place went silent for a moment. Then a tall, broad-shouldered man approached with his hand extended. Mr. Jordan. Victor Caston. It's an honor to have you in my gym. Caston was around 50, with salt and pepper hair and the build of a former athlete gone slightly soft. His handshake was firm, his smile practiced. Darius has told me a lot about these games, Michael said. Best runs in Chicago, outside the stadium, Caston said. Though with you here, that might change. The games were intense, just as Darius had promised. These weren't starstruck fans taking it easy on a celebrity. They came at Michael hard, double teams, physical defense. It felt good, pure, just basketball. During a water break, Michael noticed Caston talking quietly with Darius in the corner. His friend looked tense, nodding at whatever Caston was saying. When he saw Michael watching, Darius forced a smile and walked over. Told you these guys could play, he said, draining a paper cup of water. You weren't lying, Michael agreed. Who's the big guy with the skyhook? He's got moves. Terrence Willis. Could have been NBA if he hadn't blown out his knee at Michigan. As they talked, Michael noticed a few men on the sidelines who weren't dressed to play. They watched the games with unusual intensity, occasionally writing in small notebooks. Scouts? Michael asked, nodding toward them. Darius hesitated. Just some of Victor's friends. They like basketball. Before Michael could ask more questions, Caston blew a whistle to start the next game. They played for nearly 3 hours. By the end, Michael's jersey was soaked with sweat, his legs pleasantly tired. It had been years since he'd played without thinking about standings, statistics, or sponsors. You're welcome back any time, Mr. Jordan, Caston said, as Michael prepared to leave. We played Tuesday and Thursday nights. Very discreet. No press, no photos. In the car, Michael felt more relaxed than he had in months. That was exactly what I needed, Dee. Thanks. Darius seemed distracted. Yeah, no problem. You sure everything's okay? You've been quiet all night. Just tired, Darius said, staring out the window at the passing streetlights. Hey, those guys. Loved having you there. You planning to come back? Michael nodded slowly. Yeah, I think I might. It's nice to remember why I started playing in the first place. Darius smiled, but again, it didn't reach his eyes. As they drove through the dark Chicago streets, neither of them could have known how those games in Chicago Heights would change everything. Not just for them, but for basketball history. Or that within 2 years, Darius Washington would be dead. And Michael Jordan would carry a secret that would haunt him for the next 30 years. Present-day Marcus's taxi pulled up to the Sports Chronicle building just as his phone rang for the 20th time. This time, he answered. Where the hell are you? Layla Vasquez's voice was sharp with anger and something else, worry. Just got to the office, Marcus said, paying the driver. I'm coming up. The lobby is crawling with reporters from other outlets. Use the service entrance. She hung up before he could respond. Marcus hurried down the alley to the loading dock. His phone kept buzzing with notifications. The video of his confrontation with Jordan had exploded online. 3 million views in less than an hour. Jordan's secret was the top trending topic nationally. The service elevator carried him to the 12th floor. When the doors opened, Marcus found Layla waiting, arms crossed. At 53, She was a legend in sports journalism, the first woman to win the Pulitzer for sports reporting. Her dark eyes flashed with anger. "In my office? Now." Marcus followed her through the newsroom. Every head turned to watch him pass. Some faces showed admiration, others disapproval. His desk was already surrounded by curious colleagues. Layla shut her office door and turned to face him. "What were you thinking? Blindsiding Michael Jordan in public? Without telling me?" "If I'd told you, you would have stopped me," Marcus said. "Damn. Right, I would have." She paced behind her desk. "You ambushed the most famous athlete in American history without any concrete evidence." "I have evidence," Marcus insisted, pulling the manila envelope from his jacket. He spread the contents across her desk. The photos, the betting slips, the newspaper clipping. Layla examined them carefully. Photos of Jordan playing pickup basketball. Some betting slips that could be for anything. A funeral notice. She looked up. "This is it? This is your smoking gun?" "It's a starting point," Marcus said. "You always told me to follow my instincts. I also told you to verify your facts before making accusations." Layla sank into her chair. "Your phone video is all over Twitter. Jordan's team has already released a statement." She turned her computer, monitor toward him. The statement was brief. "The allegations implied by a reporter today are completely baseless. Mr. Jordan categorically denies any improper conduct related to basketball or gambling at any point in his career. We are considering all legal options." "They're threatening to sue," Layla said. "Not just you. The whole paper." Marcus felt his stomach twist. He'd expected backlash, but not this fast. "What does our legal team say?" "They're reviewing the video, but Harriman already called me. He says if we don't have rock-solid evidence of wrongdoing, we're exposed." A knock at the door interrupted them. Amy from the digital team poked her head in. "Sorry, but you both need to see this. ESPN, Fox Sports, and The Athletic have all released statements supporting Jordan. They're calling our reporting ambush journalism and a disgrace to sports media." Layla rubbed her temples. "Great. Just great." When Amy left, Marcus slumped into a chair. "I knew they'd close ranks around him. Jordan is untouchable." "You make it sound like a conspiracy," Layla said. "Did it occur to you that maybe, just maybe, Michael Jordan isn't hiding anything? That maybe you're seeing patterns that aren't there because of your personal history?" Marcus stiffened. "This isn't about my father." "Isn't it?" Layla's voice softened. "Marcus, you were 10 years old when your dad lost everything betting on Bulls games. That's traumatic. It would be natural if—" "This isn't about my father," Marcus repeated firmly. "It's about the truth. Something happened in Chicago Heights in 1987. Something that connects Jordan, gambling, and Darius Washington's death. I know it." Layla studied him for a long moment. "You've been working on this story for months, haven't you?" "Behind my back." Marcus nodded slowly. "I didn't want to bring it to you until I had more. But when that envelope arrived yesterday—" "Who sent it?" "I don't know. No return address." Layla sighed heavily. "You know what this looks like, right? A reporter with a personal grudge ambushing a sports icon based on anonymous tips and flimsy evidence." She held up her hand as Marcus started to protest. "I'm not saying that's what it is. I'm saying that's how it looks." Marcus's phone buzzed with a text. He checked it and went pale. "What now?" Layla asked. "Jordan's niece, Natalie Jordan. She's an attorney with Palmer and Westwick. She's downstairs demanding to see me." Layla stood up. "Don't say a word to her without our lawyers present." She walked to the door, then turned back. For what it's worth, I believe you believe in this story. But Marcus, you need more than belief. You need facts. Hard evidence. I'll find it. Marcus promised. You'd better. Because right now, your career is hanging by a thread. And you've put the reputation of this entire paper on the line. Layla's expression softened slightly. What did Jordan say to you exactly? In the hotel? Marcus replayed the moment in his mind. He said, "You have no idea what you're digging into." That's it? Yes. But it wasn't what he said. It was how he said it. He seemed almost relieved. Layla considered this. That's not the reaction of a guilty man, Marcus. No, Marcus agreed. It's the reaction of a man who's been carrying a burden for a very long time. Layla shook her head. Find the facts. I'll hold off the lawyers and the vultures as long as I can. She opened the door. And Marcus, whatever this is, whatever happened back then, make damn sure it's worth it. As she left, Marcus looked down at the old photo from Chicago Heights. Jordan's young face stared back at him, alongside Darius Washington and Victor Caston. 3 men linked by secrets. One dead, one a legend, one a mystery. And somewhere in their story lay the truth his father had taken to his grave. The law offices of Palmer and Westwick occupied the top 3 floors of a gleaming downtown skyscraper. Marcus sat in a conference room with panoramic views of Lake Michigan, feeling distinctly outmatched. To his left sat Stuart Harriman, the Chronicle's lead attorney, looking uncomfortable in his rumpled suit. Across the table, Natalie Jordan watched them with cool, appraising eyes. At 35, Natalie had her uncle's intensity, if not his height. Harvard Law School, 5 years at the Justice Department, and now a rising star at Chicago's most prestigious firm. The family resemblance was subtle but unmistakable. The same determined jaw, the same unwavering focus. "Let me be clear, Mr. Gaines," she said, sliding a document across the table. "This is a cease and desist letter. If the Sports Chronicle publishes any unsubstantiated allegations about my uncle, we will pursue legal action immediately." Harriman picked up the letter. "We understand your position, Ms. Jordan. However, Mr. Gaines hasn't actually published anything yet. No, he's just publicly ambushed my uncle with vague accusations and created a social media firestorm." Her voice remained calm, but her eyes fixed on Marcus. "Tell me, what exactly do you think you know about Chicago Heights?" Before Marcus could answer, Harriman cut in. "My client isn't going to discuss his ongoing reporting with you, Ms. Jordan." "Fair enough." Natalie leaned back in her chair. "Then let me tell you what I know. I know your father, Richard Gaines, lost your family home betting on basketball. Games in the late 1980s. I know he blamed his failures on conspiracy theories about fixed games. And I know he died 3 years ago, still bitter and convinced the world had cheated him." Marcus felt the blood rush to his face. "Leave my father out of this." "Why? He's clearly the reason you're on this crusade." Natalie's expression softened, slightly. "Mr. Gaines, I'm truly sorry about your family's struggles, but my uncle had nothing to do with your father's gambling problems." "This isn't about my father," Marcus insisted. "It's about what happened in Chicago Heights, about Darius Washington." Something flickered across Natalie's face. Surprise? Concern? "What? Do you know about Darius Washington?" she asked. "I know he was your uncle's childhood friend. I know he died under mysterious circumstances in 1989. And I know Michael was at his funeral." Marcus leaned forward. "What I don't know is why your uncle was playing in unsanctioned games in Chicago Heights, or why there were betting slips with specific performance metrics circled. Natalie and Harriman spoke at the same time. "Where did you get—" "Marcus, don't say another—" They both stopped. Natalie recovered first. "Where did you get this information?" "I have my sources," Marcus said, feeling a surge of confidence at her reaction. She was rattled. Harriman stood up. "I think this meeting is over. Ms. Jordan, we've received your letter. My client understands the legal implications of his reporting." As they gathered their things, Natalie addressed Marcus directly. "My uncle has raised millions for children's charities. He's created jobs, opportunities, and hope for countless people. What do you hope to accomplish by dragging his name through the mud?" "The truth," Marcus said simply. "That's all." "The truth," Natalie repeated. "And what if the truth isn't what you expect? What if it's more complicated? Are you prepared for that?" Before Marcus could answer, she handed him a business card. "When you realize you're hurting real people with this crusade, call me. Maybe we can find a solution that doesn't destroy multiple lives." In the elevator down, Harriman loosened his tie. "Well, that could have gone worse." "She's worried," Marcus said. "She knows there's something to find. Or she's protecting her family from a reporter with a personal vendetta," Harriman replied. "Marcus, legally speaking, you're on thin ice. If you're going to pursue this, you need more than old photos and betting slips." Marcus nodded. "I know. That's why I'm heading to Chicago Heights." The neighborhood had changed since the 1980s. Urban renewal had transformed parts of Chicago Heights, but Marcus found the old furniture warehouse easily enough. The basketball court behind it was now a parking lot for a discount grocery store. He sat in his car, staring at the spot where Michael Jordan had once played secret games. Where had the players gone? The spectators? The mysterious men with notebooks? His phone rang, Layla checking in. "Any luck?" "Not yet. I'm trying to track down players who might have been there." "Well, the pressure's mounting here," she said. "Jordan's PR team is in full damage control. They've arranged an exclusive interview with Diana Miller at CNS tomorrow." Marcus frowned. Diana Miller was the most respected sports broadcaster in America and notoriously friendly to the athletes she covered. "A friendly interview to get ahead of the story," he said. "Exactly. So if you're going to find something, find it fast." After hanging up, Marcus checked his list. Most of the names from the Chicago Heights games led nowhere, moved away, refused to talk, or simply couldn't be found. But one had agreed to meet: Terrence Willis, the player with the skyhook. The Southside Community Center was busy with afternoon basketball. Kids ran drills while parents watched from battered metal bleachers. Terrence Willis moved slowly among them, his massive frame betraying the knee injury that had ended his career before it began. At 6'11", he towered over Marcus as they shook hands. "Let's talk outside," he said, leading the way to a bench in the small park adjacent to the center. "Thanks for meeting me," Marcus began. "I'm trying to understand what happened at those games in Chicago Heights." Terrence studied him carefully. "Why now? It's been over 30 years. "The truth doesn't expire," Marcus said. Terrence barked a short laugh. "Man, you sound like a fortune cookie." He gazed at the basketball courts where children played. "You know I coach these kids? Teach them fundamentals, discipline, staying out of trouble. What do you think they'd learn if I helped you take down Michael Jordan?" "I'm not trying to take anyone down," Marcus protested. "I just want to know what happened." Terrence was quiet for a long moment. "Those games in the Heights, they weren't what you think. Jordan wasn't fixing games for money. That man hates losing more than anyone I've ever met." then what was happening? Why was Victor Caston tracking specific stats? Terrence's expression darkened. Caston was a businessman with connections, the kind of connections you don't say no to. Organized crime? I didn't ask questions, and neither should you. Terrence rubbed his bad knee. But I'll tell you this, there were some nights when Jordan played different. Not worse, exactly. Just different. How so? Little things. Taking jump shots instead of driving to the basket. Passing more in key moments. Missing shots that I'd seen him make 1,000 times in warm-ups. Terrence shook his head slowly. Most people wouldn't notice. But when you've played basketball your whole life, you can tell when someone's holding back, even just a little. Marcus felt his pulse quicken. Why would Jordan hold back? You'd have to ask him. All I know is, Darius Washington was always there on those nights, always looking nervous. Terrence stood up. That's all I'm saying. I've got kids to coach. Wait, Marcus called after him. Do you know what happened to Darius? Terrence paused. Official story was suicide. Pills and vodka in a motel room. He looked back at Marcus. But guys like Darius don't just kill themselves for no reason. And Victor Caston, is he still around? Last I heard, he was in some fancy retirement community in Lake Forest. Magnolia Gardens or something. Terrence started walking again, then stopped. Word of advice? Let sleeping dogs lie. Whatever happened back then, a lot of people worked very hard to bury it. Including Jordan? Terrence didn't answer. As he walked back to the community center, Marcus noticed a sleek black SUV with tinted windows parked across the street. It pulled away as soon as he looked at it. Marcus sat on the bench, processing what he'd learned. Jordan deliberately missing shots. Darius Washington looking nervous. Victor Caston with his connections. And now, a mysterious SUV watching him. For the first time since receiving the envelope, Marcus felt a flicker of doubt. Was he digging up something better left buried? But then he thought of his father, broken by gambling debts and convinced the games weren't fair. His phone buzzed with a news alert. Jordan team hires crisis manager Sophia Chen ahead of Diana Miller interview. They were circling the wagons, which meant there was something worth protecting. Marcus opened his laptop and searched for Magnolia Gardens Retirement Community, Lake Forest. An address appeared on his screen. It was time to pay Victor Caston a visit. Marcus was halfway to Lake Forest when his phone rang again. Unknown number. Against his better judgment, he answered on the car's Bluetooth. Marcus Gaines. Mr. Gaines, this is Sophia Chen. Marcus nearly swerved into the next lane. Sophia Chen was the most sought-after crisis manager in the country. She'd guided politicians, celebrities, and CEOs through scandals that would have destroyed anyone else. How did you get my number? Ms. Chen? That's not important. Her voice was calm and measured. What matters is that you and I both want the same thing. Resolution. I doubt that, Marcus said, signaling for the highway exit. I want the truth. You want to bury it. Such drama, Chen said with a soft laugh. I don't bury truth, Mr. Gaines. I contextualize it. There's a difference. And what context would you like to give to Chicago Heights? That's what I'd like to discuss. In person. I'm at the Four Seasons. I can have a car pick you up wherever you are. Marcus hesitated. Meeting with Jordan's crisis manager felt like walking into the lion's den. But she might reveal something useful, even inadvertently. I have appointments all day, he lied. Maybe tomorrow. As you wish. Her tone suggested she knew he was lying. But, Mr. Gaines? Victor Caston has advanced. Dementia. He hasn't had a lucid day in years. You're chasing ghosts. The call ended before Marcus could respond. He gripped the steering wheel tighter. How did she know where he was going? The same way Natalie Jordan knew about his father, he supposed. They were doing their homework, which meant they saw him as a real threat. Magnolia Gardens was more luxury, resort than retirement home. Manicured grounds, doormen in crisp uniforms, a fountain featuring actual swans. Marcus approached the front desk with practiced confidence. "I'm here to see Victor Caston." His niece said, "I might find him in the garden this time of day." The receptionist smiled. "Mr. Caston usually sits by the koi pond until dinner. Just follow the path outside." Sometimes, the simplest lies worked best. Marcus walked through the elegant lobby and out to the gardens. He found Victor Caston exactly where the receptionist had said. A hunched figure in a wheelchair by a small pond filled with orange and white fish. At first glance, Sophia Chen's information seemed correct. Caston stared vacantly at the water, his once powerful frame now frail and diminished. An attendant stood nearby, checking her phone. Marcus approached slowly. "Mr. Caston? My name is Marcus Gaines. I'd like to talk about Chicago Heights." No response. The old man continued staring at the fish. The attendant looked up. "He doesn't talk much anymore. Are you family?" "An old friend," Marcus lied again. "I used to play basketball in his gym." "Basketball?" A surprising clarity flashed in Caston's eyes. "You played in my games?" The attendant looked surprised. "That's the most he's said all week." "Would you mind if I sat with him for a few minutes?" Marcus asked. She shrugged. "I need a coffee anyway. 10 minutes?" When she was gone, Marcus pulled a chair close to Caston. "Mr. Caston, I'm researching what happened at your games in Chicago Heights, especially the ones Michael Jordan played." Caston's eyes narrowed slightly. "Michael. Great player. Best ever." "Yes, he was," Marcus agreed. "Do you remember Darius Washington?" The name seemed to trigger something. Caston's hands tightened on the arms of his wheelchair. "Darius. Bad business." "What happened to him, Mr. Caston?" "Not my fault," Caston muttered. "Got in too deep. Couldn't pay." Marcus leaned closer. Couldn't pay who? But Caston's moment of lucidity was fading. His eyes drifted back to the pond. "The fish always know when it's feeding time?" Marcus tried another approach. "The games Michael played, was he told to miss shots sometimes?" Caston laughed. A dry sound like rustling leaves. "Michael? Nobody tells Michael anything." His expression darkened. "But Darius. Poor Darius." "What about Darius?" Caston looked at Marcus, suddenly suspicious. "Who are you? Did they send you?" "No one sent me," Marcus assured him. "I'm just looking for the truth." "Truth," Caston repeated, as if testing the word. "Truth is, Michael never knew. Not about the money. Thought he was helping his friend." He leaned forward, voice dropping to a whisper. Detective should have looked harder. Wasn't suicide. Marcus's heart raced. "Which detective? Who was investigating Darius's death?" "The woman. Tough lady? Kept coming back, asking questions." Caston's head drooped. "Too late now. All too late. Mr. Caston, do you remember the detective's name?" But Caston had retreated into himself again, mumblings becoming incoherent. Marcus saw the attendant returning and stood up quickly. "Thank you for your time," he said, though Caston didn't acknowledge him. The attendant gave him a curious look. "Did he remember you?" "Bits and pieces," Marcus said. "It's hard to see him like this." As he walked back to his car, Marcus's mind raced. Kasten's fractured comments suggested Jordan hadn't been involved in any gambling scheme. He'd been trying to help Darius Washington, and a female detective had investigated Washington's death, apparently not satisfied with the suicide ruling. It wasn't much, but it was a lead. He was so preoccupied that he didn't notice the person leaning against his car until he was almost upon her. "Mr. Gaines," Natalie Jordan said, pushing off from the driver's side door. "We need to talk." Marcus stopped short. "Are you following me now?" "You're not exactly being subtle." She glanced back at the retirement home. "Learn anything useful from a man with dementia? That's low, even for a tabloid journalist." "I don't work for a tabloid," Marcus snapped, "and Kasten was more lucid than your team led me to believe." Something like concern crossed her face. "What did he tell you?" "Enough to keep digging," Marcus said, moving to open his car door. "Now, if you'll excuse me..." Natalie didn't budge. "My uncle had nothing to do with Darius Washington's death." "I never said he did." "Then what exactly are you implying happened in Chicago Heights?" Marcus studied her face. Despite her confrontational stance, he sensed genuine worry, not calculation. "I think your uncle was trying to help his friend," Marcus said carefully. "And I think something went very wrong." Natalie's professional mask slipped, just for a moment. "You have no idea who you're really hurting with this crusade." "Then tell me," Marcus challenged. "If you know what happened, tell me now, and this ends." She shook her head slowly. "It's not my story to tell." "Then it's still my story to find." They stood in silence, at an impasse. Finally, Natalie stepped aside. "My uncle is a good man, Mr. Gaines. Whatever you think you're going to discover, remember that." As Marcus drove away, he glanced in his rearview mirror. Natalie Jordan remained in the parking lot, phone pressed to her ear, watching him go. The pieces were starting to fit together, but the picture they formed wasn't what he'd expected. Jordan hadn't been fixing games for profit. He'd been trying to help a friend in trouble. But what trouble? And who was the female detective who'd investigated Washington's death? As the highway stretched before him, Marcus knew his next step: find the detective who never believed Darius Washington committed suicide. The Chicago Police Department Records Division was housed in a drab building that hadn't been updated since the 90s. Marcus sat in a hard plastic chair, waiting for his request to be processed. He'd been there for nearly 2 hours. "Mr. Gaines?" An older woman in a police department polo shirt called from the counter. Marcus approached, trying not to look too eager. "Did you find something?" She handed him a thin folder. "Case file on Darius Washington, 1989. You can review it here, but nothing leaves the building." "Of course. Thank you." Marcus took the folder to a small reading desk in the corner. His hands were almost shaking as he opened it. Inside were sparse documents: autopsy report, initial investigation notes, crime scene photos. The official cause of death was listed as apparent suicide by drug overdose, pills and vodka, just as Terrence Willis had said. He scanned the report for the lead detective's name: Detective Elaine Harper, badge number 4487. The photos were grim. Darius Washington's body on a motel bed, pill bottle on the nightstand, empty vodka, bottle on the floor. No note. The autopsy showed high levels of Valium and alcohol. Everything pointed to suicide. Except one thing. Detective Harper's final notes included a single line that caught Marcus's attention. Despite appearance of suicide, certain inconsistencies warrant further investigation. But there was no follow-up report. No details about the inconsistencies. The case had been closed anyway. Marcus took photos of everything with his phone, then returned the folder to the counter. Is there any way to contact Detective Harper? I'd like to ask her about this case. The woman frowned. Harper? Elaine Harper? She retired about 10 years ago. No idea where she is now. Any way to find out? We don't give out personal information about former officers, she said firmly. Marcus had expected that. I understand. Thank you for your help. Outside, Marcus called Layla. I've got a name, Detective Elaine Harper. She investigated Darius, Washington's death in 1989. Give me a minute, Layla said. He could hear her typing. As an investigative journalist for over 20 years, Layla had connections everywhere. Elaine Harper, retired CPD, moved to Wisconsin after retirement. Lives in a small town called Pine Lake. I'll text you the address. How did you... Police Union newsletter, Layla said. They do features on retired officers. And Marcus? Jordan's. Interview with Diana Miller airs tonight. Be ready for the fallout. Pine Lake, Wisconsin, was a 3-hour drive north of Chicago. Marcus arrived just before sunset, following his GPS to a modest cabin on the edge of the lake. A small dock extended into the water, where a gray-haired woman sat in a folding chair, fishing. Marcus approached slowly, not wanting to startle her. Detective Harper? She turned, her weathered face showing no surprise. Been a long time since anyone called me detective. Who's asking? Marcus Gaines. I'm a reporter with the Sports Chronicle. Ah, she reeled in her line and set the rod aside. The one who confronted Michael Jordan. I've been expecting someone to come digging. Marcus blinked in surprise. You've been following the story? Hard to miss. She gestured to the chair next to hers. Sit if you want. Beer's in the cooler. Marcus sat and grabbed a beer. I'm investigating what happened in Chicago Heights in 1987, and Darius Washington's death in '89. Harper sighed. Ancient. History. Not to some people. True enough. She took a long drink from her own beer. What do you want to know? You investigated Washington's death. The report says suicide, but your notes mentioned inconsistencies. Harper nodded slowly. Good research. Those inconsistencies bothered me for years. What were they? Little things. The pill bottle had no fingerprints, wiped clean. Washington was right-handed, but the vodka bottle was on the left side of the bed. His car was parked oddly, like someone else had parked it. She shook her head. Nothing solid enough for my captain to keep the case open. You think he was murdered? I think someone made it look like suicide. Washington had gambling debts to some very dangerous people. Victor Caston? Harper laughed. Caston was just the front man. He ran the games, handled the smaller bets, but he answered to people from the outfit. The Chicago mob? They had a piece of everything back then, including some alleged point-shaving operations. She gave Marcus a significant look. Washington was skimming money, taking bets, not reporting all of them to his bosses, pocketing the difference. And they found out? That's my theory. But I could never prove it. Every lead dried up. Witnesses, suddenly, couldn't remember anything. Her eyes narrowed. What's your interest in all this? Why Jordan? Marcus explained about the anonymous envelope, the photos, his suspicions. Harper listened without interrupting. When he finished, she laughed again. Son, you've got it backwards. Jordan wasn't fixing games. He was trying to save his friend. What do you mean? Washington got in too deep with the wrong people. Couldn't pay his debts. Jordan found out, and tried to help, playing in those unsanctioned games, occasionally holding back just enough to help Washington with the betting spreads. She looked out at the lake. Jordan was trying to buy time for his friend to get square with the outfit. Marcus felt dizzy with this new information. How do you know this? Because Jordan came to see me after Washington died. He was devastated. Thought it was his fault for not doing more. Harper's voice softened. He was just a kid himself, really. 26 years old. Best basketball player in the world. But still just a young man who couldn't save his friend. Marcus struggled to process this. So Jordan was never involved in fixing NBA games? Never. This was strictly those underground games in Chicago Heights. She fixed him with a stern look. And he only did it to help Washington. Not for money, not for himself. If that's true, Marcus said slowly, then my father. Your father? Marcus explained about his father's gambling losses, his belief that certain Bulls games had been fixed. Harper shook her head sympathetically. Gamblers always need someone to blame, but your father's losses weren't because of any fix. They were just bad bets. As the sun set over Pine Lake, Marcus sat in silence. Everything he'd believed about Jordan, about his father's losses, it was all wrong. I have one more question, he finally said. Did you ever find out who killed Darius Washington? Harper's expression darkened. I had my suspicions. A hitman known to work for the outfit. But he died in a car accident before I could build a case. She paused. There was something else, though. Something that never made it into any report. What? After Washington died, several families with gambling debts to the outfit suddenly had those debts forgiven, and others received anonymous help with medical bills, college tuition. A lot of money changing hands, all untraceable. You think Jordan was behind that? I know he was. It was his way of making amends, I suppose, for not being able to save his friend. She looked directly at Marcus. He's been doing it ever since, quietly helping families hurt by gambling, all these years. Marcus thought of his father's medical care during his final illness, the specialized treatments insurance wouldn't cover, the bills that somehow disappeared. He'd always assumed it was hospital charity. You think? My family? Harper just looked at him, letting the implications sink in. As darkness fell over the lake, Marcus faced a devastating possibility. The man he'd been trying to expose might be the same man who had secretly helped his own family when they needed it most. Marcus drove back to Chicago in a daze, his mind replaying Detective Harper's revelations. Rain pattered against the windshield, matching his dark mood. He had built his investigation, and truthfully, much of his adult life, around a false narrative. His father hadn't been cheated by fixed games, and Jordan wasn't the villain he had imagined. He pulled over at a highway rest stop and turned on the radio just as Diana Miller's interview with Michael Jordan began. Miller's voice was warm and professional. Michael, thank you for sitting down with me. I know this is a difficult time. Thank you for having me, Diana. Jordan's voice sounded tired but composed. Let's address the allegations directly. Were you involved in any point-shaving scheme in the late 1980s? Absolutely not, Jordan said firmly. I've never bet on basketball. I've never shaved points in an NBA game. My reputation is built on my competitive drive. Anyone who knows me knows I would never throw a game. Marcus noted Jordan's careful wording. Never shaved points in an NBA game. Technically true, according to Harper. Can you explain the photos that have emerged showing you playing in unsanctioned games in Chicago Heights? Miller asked. Yes. In my early years with the Bulls, I occasionally played pickup games during the off-season. Just basketball, away from the spotlight. Nothing illegal or improper about it. And your relationship with Darius Washington? A pause. When Jordan spoke again, his voice had softened. Darius was my childhood friend from North Carolina. He had some personal struggles. I tried to help him, but I couldn't save him. These questions are being raised by a reporter with a personal connection to gambling losses. Do you have any response to that? I don't blame him for asking questions. Gambling addiction destroys families. I've seen it firsthand. But his pain doesn't make his allegations true. Marcus turned off the radio. Jordan was giving just enough of the truth to seem forthcoming, while still protecting the full story. And protecting himself. Back in his apartment, Marcus spread all his evidence across the kitchen table. The photos from Chicago Heights, Darius Washington's death report, his notes from the meetings with Terrence Willis, Victor Caston, and Detective Harper. The picture was becoming clearer, but significant gaps remained. How deep was Washington's involvement with the Chicago outfit? How much did Jordan actually know about the gambling operation? And who had sent Marcus the anonymous envelope that started it all? His phone rang. Layla. I just watched the interview, she said without preamble. Jordan came across well. Sympathetic, direct, just emotional enough. The public is taking his side. I'm not surprised. You sound different, Layla observed. What did you find in Wisconsin? Marcus hesitated. It's complicated. Can we meet tomorrow? I need to figure out my next steps. Sure, but heads up, Natalie Jordan has filed the lawsuit. We're officially being sued for defamation. But I haven't published anything yet. Doesn't matter. The implication was enough, especially after the video went viral. The chronicles how lawyers want to meet first thing tomorrow. After hanging up, Marcus paced his apartment. The lawsuit changed things. He needed more concrete evidence, not just of what had happened in Chicago Heights, but of everything that followed. He kept coming back to one question: who had access to all this information? The photos, the betting slips, the connection to Washington's death. It had to be someone close to the original events, someone who knew exactly what had happened. A thought struck him. Detective Harper had mentioned a file of evidence on Darius Washington's death, a file that never made it into the official police records. He called her immediately. The evidence from Washington's case, where is it now? In my personal storage, Harper said. I never trusted it to the department archives. Too many important files had a way of disappearing back then. I need to see it, she hesitated. It's been locked away for 30 years for a reason, Marcus. Opening this case won't just affect Jordan. There are other people involved, people who might still be dangerous. I need to know the whole truth, Marcus insisted. For my father, for myself. A long silence. Fine. Come back tomorrow. But I'm warning you, some truths don't set you free. They just create new prisons. The next morning, Marcus drove back to Pine Lake. Harper was waiting on her porch with a cardboard box beside her. Everything I collected, she said, patting the box. Crime scene photos never submitted. Witness statements that contradicted the suicide theory. Financial records showing Washington's dealings with the outfit. Marcus lifted the lid. On top was a photograph he hadn't seen before. Jordan at Washington's funeral, his face etched with grief, standing slightly apart from other mourners. Look closer, Harper said. In the background, partially obscured, was a face Marcus recognized. A younger Victor Caston, watching Jordan. Caston went to the funeral. They all did. Washington's family. Jordan. Caston. even some of the outfit guys paying respects while making sure everyone could see them doing it. Marcus dug deeper into the box. Handwritten betting records, security, camera stills from the motel where Washington died. And then, something unexpected. A small stack of newspaper clippings about Richard Gaines, Marcus's father. "Why do you have information about my father?" Harper looked uncomfortable. "After Jordan came to me, I looked into other gambling cases connected to the outfit. Your father lost big on Bulls games in '88 and '89. I wondered if there was a connection. And was there? Not to any point shaving. Your father just made bad bets." She hesitated. "But afterward, when your family was struggling, anonymous donations to your mother's bank account, medical care for your father that insurance wouldn't cover." Marcus felt his throat tighten. "You think Jordan was behind that?" "I know he was. He felt responsible in a way, not for your father's losses, but for not stopping the whole operation sooner." Harper pulled out one last document, a list of names and amounts. "These are the families Jordan helped over the years. Yours is on page 3. Marcus stared at the list, his vision blurring. Nearly 40 families, spanning 3 decades. Millions of dollars in quiet assistance. And halfway down page 3, Gaines, Richard, medical housing support, $217,000. The sum was staggering. All those years his mother had attributed their survival to good luck and the kindness of strangers. "Why would Jordan do this?" Marcus whispered. "He didn't even know these people." "Guilt," Harper said simply, "for not being able to save his friend, for letting the games continue as long as they did. And maybe something more, a genuine desire to help." As Marcus processed this revelation, Harper pulled out one final item from the box, a sealed envelope. "This came to my home address a week ago," she said. "No return address. I think you should see it." Marcus opened it with trembling hands. Inside was a single sheet of paper with a typed message. "It's time for the truth. Marcus Gaines will be looking for answers. Help him find them." And at the bottom, a simple initial. N. By the time Marcus returned to Chicago, the Jordan interview had transformed the public narrative. "A Stand with MJ" was trending nationwide, with basketball fans and celebrities rallying behind the NBA legend. The Sports Chronicle's social media accounts were flooded with angry comments. Death threats had been sent to the newspaper's main email address. Marcus sat in Layla's office, watching the media storm unfold on her wall-mounted TV screens. "The lawsuit is just the beginning," Layla said, muting a panel discussion where sportscasters unanimously condemned Marcus's reporting methods. "Jordan's team is playing this perfectly. They've made you the villain in this story." Marcus barely heard her. His mind was still processing the letter with the single initial. N. Natalie Jordan. It had to be. But why would Jordan's own niece secretly help the investigation into her uncle's past? "Are you listening to me?" Layla waved a hand in front of his face. "The publisher is freaking out. Advertisers are threatening to pull out. We need to decide our next move." "I need more time," Marcus said. "The story isn't what I thought. It's complicated." "Complicated how?" Layla leaned forward. "Did you find something that exonerates Jordan?" Before Marcus could answer, Amy from the digital team burst in. "You need to see this. Charles Barkley just went on ESPN to defend Jordan." She turned up the volume on one of the screens. Barkley, Jordan's longtime friend and former rival, was in full protective mode. "Michael Jordan is the most competitive human being I've ever met," Barkley was saying. "The idea that he would throw games is absurd. This reporter should be ashamed of himself for ambushing a legend based on nothing but old photos and conspiracy theories. The host nodded sympathetically. Other former players have also spoken out. Scottie Pippen called the allegations a disgrace, and Dennis Rodman said, and I quote, "Anyone who believes MJ would ever lose on purpose doesn't know a damn thing about basketball." Not everyone was defending Jordan unconditionally, however. A smaller news channel featured former referee Tim Donaghy, himself disgraced in a gambling scandal years earlier. "I'm not saying Jordan fixed games," Donaghy was saying carefully, "but those Chicago Heights games were known in certain circles. There was big money changing hands. If Jordan was involved, even peripherally, it deserves investigation." Social media reflected this divide. While most supported Jordan, a vocal minority used hashtags like #Chicago Heights Truth and "On What Is Jordan Hiding?" Conspiracy theories flourished in these online spaces, most far more sensational than the actual truth. "Jordan's charitable foundation is taking a hit," Amy reported, scrolling through her tablet. "Donations are down 30% since the story broke, and Nike's stock dipped 2 points this morning." Layla dismissed Amy with a nod, then turned back to Marcus. "This isn't just about you or Jordan anymore. Real damage is being done. If you have evidence that changes the narrative, we need it now." Marcus stared out the window at the Chicago skyline. "I think Jordan was trying to help his friend who was in trouble with the mob. He played in those unsanctioned games and occasionally held back, not to fix NBA games, but to help Washington with his debts to dangerous people." Layla's eyes widened. "That's not what I expected. Do you have proof?" "Pieces. Detective Harper's testimony? Some evidence files? Nothing conclusive. Yet." "So Jordan wasn't fixing games for profit, but to help a friend in trouble? That's a very different story than what people are assuming." "There's more," Marcus said hesitantly. "After Washington died, likely murdered by mob associates, Jordan started anonymously helping families affected by gambling, including, possibly, my own family." Layla sat back, stunned. "Your family? How?" "Medical bills for my father, housing support when we lost our home." Marcus swallowed hard. "Over $200,000 over the years." Silence filled the office. Finally, Layla spoke. "If true, that's not just a different story. It's the opposite of what everyone thinks you're investigating." Marcus nodded. "I know. So what now? You started this. People are taking sides. Jordan's legacy is being questioned. His foundation is suffering. And it sounds like the real story might actually enhance his reputation, not damage it." "I need to talk to Jordan directly," Marcus said. "One-on-one. No cameras, no lawyers. Just the truth. After you ambushed him at the Drake, his team will never agree to that." "Maybe not." Marcus pulled out his phone and showed her Natalie Jordan's business card. "But I think I have someone who might help arrange it." Layla studied him for a long moment. "Whatever you decide, the Chronicle stands behind you. But Marcus, make sure you're pursuing the truth, not just what you want to believe." As Marcus left her office, he passed a TV showing Jordan's basketball highlights. The familiar sight of number 23 soaring through the air, defying gravity as only he could, now carried a weight it never had before. The man who had once been Marcus's childhood hero, then his obsession, had become something far more complex. A flawed human being who had made a terrible mistake trying to save his friend, then spent 3 decades trying to make amends. Now Marcus needed to decide what to do with that truth. Marcus sat at his desk, staring at a blank document on his computer screen. The pressure to publish something was mounting. His editor needed a story. The public wanted answers, and Marcus himself needed resolution. But what story should he tell? His phone buzzed with a text from Layla. "Publisher wants update. What are you filing?" Before he could respond, another message arrived. This one from Natalie Jordan. "Meet me at the Lakefront Trail near Navy Pier. 30 minutes. No please, no explanation, just a demand." Marcus grabbed his jacket and headed out. The lakefront was crowded with joggers and tourists enjoying the spring day. Marcus spotted Natalie sitting on a bench overlooking Lake Michigan, sunglasses hiding her eyes despite the cloudy weather. "You found something in Detective Harper's files," she said as he sat beside her. "Not a question, but a statement." "You knew I would," Marcus replied. "Just like you knew I'd go to Harper in the first place. You sent her that letter, didn't you?" And for Natalie, she removed her sunglasses, revealing tired eyes. "What exactly did you find?" "Evidence that your uncle was trying to help Darius Washington. That Washington was in trouble with the Chicago outfit. That after Washington died, Jordan spent decades anonymously helping families hurt by gambling addiction." Marcus paused. "Including mine." Natalie showed no surprise. "And now you don't know what story to write? Why did you lead me to Harper? Why help me investigate your own uncle?" She stared out at the lake. "My uncle has carried this secret for 30 years. It's eaten at him, shaped everything he's done since. The charities, the foundations, the millions in anonymous donations. It all traces back to Darius." She turned to face Marcus. "I thought it was time for the truth. All of it." "Does Jordan know you've been helping me?" "No, and he can never know." Her voice was firm. "My uncle doesn't want anyone's gratitude or recognition for what he's done, especially not from the families he's helped. So what now? I'm supposed to bury the story? Pretend I never found anything?" "That's up to you." Natalie handed him a thick manila envelope. "But you should have all the facts first." Inside were documents Marcus hadn't seen before, private letters between Jordan and Washington, bank records showing the millions Jordan had donated over the years, and most damning police reports connecting Victor Caston to suspected mob hits, including potentially Washington's death. "My God," Marcus whispered. "How did you get these?" "I'm a lawyer with resources, and my uncle keeps meticulous records, even of his anonymous giving." Natalie's voice softened. "He never wanted credit. He just wanted to make amends." "Amends for what? He didn't kill Washington?" "No, but he believes he could have saved him. Could have stopped him from getting involved with Caston in the first place." She stood up. "It's all there. What you do with it is your decision." As she walked away, Marcus called after her. "Why now? After 30 years? Why let this come out now?" Natalie paused. "Because the secret itself has become a burden too heavy to bear. Maybe it's time for healing. For everyone." Back at the Chronicle, Marcus found Layla waiting at his desk. "Where have you been?" "The publisher is demanding copy. We need to run something, even if it's just an update on the investigation." Marcus set down the envelope Natalie had given him. "I have everything, the whole story." "Then write it," Layla said. "You're a journalist. It's your job." "It's not that simple." "It never is." Layla's expression softened. "Look, I know this has become personal for you, but our readers deserve the truth." "Which truth? That my childhood hero tried to help his friend by occasionally missing shots in underground games? That he spent 30 years anonymously helping gambling addicts and their families to atone for a friend he couldn't save? Marcus ran a hand through his hair. Or do I write that the greatest basketball player of all time was connected to point shaving and a mob-related death? Exactly what everyone already assumes I'm investigating. Layla sat on the edge of his desk. Write the story that needs to be told. The true one. Marcus began typing, the words flowing easily now that he had made his decision. He wrote about Jordan and Washington's friendship, about Washington's gambling debts to dangerous people, about Jordan's desperate attempt to help by occasionally holding back in those Chicago Heights games. He wrote about Washington's death, the investigation that went nowhere, and Jordan's decades-long mission to anonymously help families affected by gambling addiction. He included everything, except the names of those families, including his own. When he finished, he slid the laptop toward Layla. There it is, the truth. She read it carefully, her expression unreadable. When she finished, she asked, "Are you sure about this?" "I've never been more sure of anything." Layla nodded slowly. "It's a powerful story. If we run it, Jordan's legacy changes forever. Not destroyed, but complicated. Human. And if we don't run it, then we're not doing our jobs as journalists." She pushed the laptop back to him. "But there's something missing. You need to talk to Jordan himself. Get his side, directly. His team will never allow it. Then find another way." As if on cue, Marcus's phone rang, a blocked number. He answered cautiously. "Mr. Gaines." The voice belonged to Sophia Chen, Jordan's crisis manager. "My client would like to meet with you, tonight at his office, alone." Marcus's heart raced. Why the change of heart? Let's just say certain information has come to his attention. Her tone was impossible to read. 8 o'clock. No recording devices, no photographers. Just you and Mr. Jordan. After she hung up, Marcus turned to Layla. "Jordan wants to meet. Tonight." "Good. Hear him out. Then make your final decision about the story." She stood to leave. "But Marcus, the publisher wants something tomorrow." Time's running out. Alone at his desk, Marcus stared at his article on the screen. Everything he had learned, everything he had discovered about Jordan, about Washington, about his own family's connection to the story. It was all there. His phone buzzed with another text, this one from Detective Harper. "Be careful tonight. Old secrets have a way of biting back." As evening fell over Chicago, Marcus prepared for what might be the most important interview of his career. The confrontation that had started at the Drake Hotel would end in Jordan's office. This time, Marcus wasn't hunting for a scandal. He was searching for understanding. And perhaps forgiveness, not just for Jordan, but for himself, for his father, for all of them caught in this 30-year web of secrets and consequences. The truth was within reach. But as he would soon discover, truth rarely brings the closure we expect. Jordan's corporate headquarters occupied the top floor of a sleek downtown high-rise. At precisely 8 o'clock, Marcus stepped out of the elevator into a minimalist lobby dominated by a backlit silhouette of Jordan's famous Jumpman logo. Security guard checked his ID, then led him down a hallway lined with framed jerseys and championship memorabilia. Each display case held a piece of basketball history. The shoes from the flu game, the ball from his final championship-winning shot with the Bulls, his Olympic gold medals. At the end of the hall stood a simple wooden door with no nameplate. The guard knocked once, then opened it without waiting for a response. "Mr. Gaines is here, sir." Michael Jordan sat behind a massive desk, studying something on a computer screen. He looked up and nodded. "Thank you, Tony. That'll be all." Raturdibi, guard left, closing the door behind him. For a moment, neither man spoke. Marcus had imagined this meeting countless times since their confrontation at the Drake. But now that it was happening, he felt strangely calm. "Please, sit," Jordan said, gesturing to a chair across from him. Marcus sat, noticing the desk between them was empty, except for a single folder. The room itself was surprisingly modest for a billionaire's office. Basketball trophies and memorabilia, certainly, but nothing ostentatious. One wall featured photographs not of Jordan's basketball triumphs, but of charity events and children's hospital visits. "No recorder?" Jordan asked, his deep voice breaking the silence. "No, just like Ms. Chen requested." Jordan nodded. "I've read your draft article." Marcus stiffened. "How did you—" "Does it matter?" Jordan closed his laptop. "It's more accurate than I expected. Still missing some key details, but you got the important parts right." "Natalie gave you a copy," Marcus realized. "She's been working both sides all along." "My niece believes the truth should come out. I'm not sure I agree, but here we are." Jordan leaned back in his chair. "You've been hunting this story for months." "Why?" Marcus thought about deflecting, keeping to journalistic objectivity, but something in Jordan's direct gaze demanded honesty. "It started because of my father. He lost everything betting on Bulls games. He always believed something wasn't right about certain games, that the greatest player in the world sometimes made inexplicable mistakes. And you believed him." "I loved him," Marcus said simply. "When you're 10 years old and your hero tells you something, you believe it." Jordan nodded, understanding in his eyes. "We've all had heroes who disappointed us." "Like Darius Washington disappointed you?" A flicker of old pain crossed Jordan's face. "Darius didn't disappoint me. I failed him." "That's not how Detective Harper tells it. She says you tried to save him." "I tried. I failed." Jordan's voice was flat. "I had all the money and fame in the world, but I couldn't save my oldest friend from his demons. So you've spent 30 years trying to make up for it by helping other families affected by gambling." Jordan didn't confirm or deny it. Instead, he opened the folder on his desk and slid a photograph across to Marcus. It showed two boys around, 12 years old, skinny and grinning, on a cracked basketball court. One was recognizably a young Michael Jordan. The other, Marcus assumed, was Darius Washington. "We grew up together," Jordan said. "Played ball every day after school. When I got drafted by the Bulls, Darius followed me to Chicago. Couldn't make it in basketball. Wasn't quite good enough. But he wanted to be part of that world somehow. So, he got involved with Caston and the gambling operation." Jordan nodded. "At first, it was just hanging around the games, making connections. Then he started placing bets for people who didn't want to be seen betting. Then he was skimming money, thinking no one would notice. But the mob noticed." "They always notice." Jordan's voice hardened. "They threatened him. Gave him a choice. Fix some games with inside information, or pay back everything he'd skimmed with interest. Money he didn't have. So he came to you." "Not. At first, I found out by accident. Overheard a phone call." Jordan stared at the old photograph. "I could have gone to the police. Should have, probably. But Darius begged me not to. Said these people would kill him. So I tried to help another way by playing in the Chicago Heights games, by occasionally holding back, missing shots you'd normally make. Just enough to help with the betting spreads, just until Darius could get square with these people." Jordan's jaw tightened. "It was wrong. I know that. But I thought I was saving my friend's life. But it wasn't enough. No, Darius kept digging the hole deeper. More bets, more skimming. And when Kasten's bosses found out, Jordan fell silent. They killed him and made it look like suicide. Marcus finished. Jordan didn't respond directly. After Darius died, I swore I'd never be involved in anything like that again. But I also promised myself I'd try to help families hurt by gambling. People like your father. Marcus felt his throat tighten. The medical bills, the mortgage payments. When we were about to lose our house, that was you? I never knew the names. A foundation handled it. I just provided the funds and guidelines for who should be helped. The silence that followed felt heavy, with 3 decades of secrets, guilt, and atonement. Finally, Marcus asked the question that had driven him all these months. Why didn't you ever tell this story? Clear your name? Explain what really happened? And implicate myself in point shaving, even if it wasn't NBA games? Admit I knew about a gambling operation connected to organized crime and didn't report it? Jordan shook his head. Besides, the story wasn't just mine to tell. There were other families involved. People who'd been hurt enough. People like my family. Yes, Marcus struggled to reconcile the man before him. Honest, remorseful, human. With both the basketball deity of his childhood and the villain of his father's bitter accusations. I have one more question, Marcus said. When I confronted you at the Drake, you said, "You have no idea what you're digging into." It didn't sound like a threat. It almost sounded like relief. Jordan was quiet for a long moment. Carrying a secret for 30 years is exhausting, Mr. Gaines. Maybe part of me was ready for the truth to come out. He closed the folder. The question now is, what are you going to do with that truth? I don't know yet, Marcus answered honestly. Well, Jordan said, standing to signal the end of their meeting, whatever you decide, I won't try to stop you. The truth is the truth, however uncomfortable. As Marcus left the office, he realized Jordan hadn't once asked him to kill the story or offered any deal to keep things quiet. The man who had controlled every aspect of his public image for decades was finally relinquishing that control. The decision now rested entirely with Marcus. Marcus couldn't sleep that night. He paced his apartment, Jordan's words echoing in his mind. Around 3 in the morning, he opened his laptop and stared at his draft article. The story was solid, backed by evidence, interviews, and now Jordan's own confirmation. It would be the biggest sports story of the decade. It would also forever change how people viewed Michael Jordan. His phone buzzed with a text from Layla. Decision time. Are we publishing tomorrow? Before he could respond, another message arrived from an unknown number. Meet me at Lincoln Park by the South basketball courts. 7 a.m. Important information about Jordan. Come alone. Marcus stared at the cryptic message. A trap? Or one last piece of the puzzle? The morning was misty. The basketball courts empty at this early hour. Marcus arrived 15 minutes early, scanning the area for his mysterious contact. The only other person in sight was an older man shooting baskets alone, his movements fluid despite his age. As Marcus approached, the man turned. He was in his early 60s, tall and fit, with a familiar face Marcus had seen in those old Chicago Heights photos. Terrence Willis? You recognized me. I'm flattered. Terrence dribbled the ball slowly. I hear you talked to Jordan yesterday. News travels fast, in certain circles. Terrence took a shot, the ball swishing through the net. So now you know most of it. Jordan trying to help Washington. Washington's trouble with Kasten and his bosses. The help Jordan's been giving to families over the years. Is there something I don't know? Terrence retrieved the ball. Yeah, my part in it. He passed the ball to Marcus, who caught it automatically. Back then, I was more than just another player in those games. I was Washington's friend too. I knew what was happening, the skimming, the threats, Jordan trying to help. Why are you telling me this now? Because your story isn't complete. Terrence's expression darkened. The night Washington died, I was supposed to meet him. He called me, sounded scared, said he had information that would blow everything up. Marcus felt his pulse quicken. What kind of information? He never got to tell me. By the time I got to his place, he was already dead. Terrence took the ball back from Marcus. For 30 years, I've wondered what he was going to tell me. What was worth killing him over? You think he discovered something about Caston? About the gambling operation? Maybe. Or maybe about Jordan. Jordan? You think Jordan had something to do with Washington's death? Terrence shot the ball again, another perfect swish. I don't know, but I do know this. After Washington died, certain games in Chicago Heights stopped having unusual betting patterns. Almost like whoever was pulling the strings didn't need Jordan's help anymore. Marcus tried to process this new information. Are you suggesting Jordan was more involved than he's admitted? That he deliberately threw games even after Washington's death? I'm not suggesting anything, Terrence said. I'm just telling you facts. Washington died. The betting irregularities stopped. Jordan started his anonymous giving. You connect the dots, however you want. As they talked, Marcus noticed a black SUV with tinted windows parked across the street, similar to the one he'd seen after their first meeting. You're being watched, Marcus said quietly. Terrence nodded without looking. Have been for years. They leave me alone as long as I keep quiet. He dribbled the ball thoughtfully. Which makes you wonder why I'm talking to you now, doesn't it? Why are you? Because I'm dying, Mr. Gaines. Cancer. 6 months left, maybe less. He passed the ball back to Marcus. And I'm tired of carrying secrets for men who've gone on with their lives while Washington is still in the ground. Marcus felt a rush of sympathy for the former player. I'm sorry about your diagnosis. Don't be. We all face our final buzzer eventually. Terrence gestured to the court. Jordan came to see me last week, first time in years. Offered to pay for any treatment I needed anywhere in the world. That sounds generous. Does it? Or was he making sure I wouldn't talk to you? Terrence's eyes were hard. Jordan's been buying silence for 30 years with his generosity. The question is, has he been paying for his own sins or covering for someone else's? Before Marcus could respond, Terrence walked to a bench where his jacket lay and pulled out an old flip phone. Washington left me a voicemail the night he died. I've kept it all these years, never showed it to anyone, not even Detective Harper. He pressed a button, and a young man's terrified voice filled the quiet morning. T. It's D. I found something. About the games, about who's really behind everything. Not Caston, he's just the front man. It goes higher, way higher. I'm scared, man. If anything happens to me, tell Mike. The message cut off abruptly. That's it? Marcus asked. That's it, Terrence confirmed, pocketing the phone. His last words, cut off before he could finish, before he could tell me what to tell Jordan. Or who was really behind everything, Marcus added. Terrence nodded slowly. So now you have one more piece of the puzzle, Mr. Gaines. The question is, what are you going to do with it? As Terrence walked away, leaving the ball on the court, Marcus felt the weight of responsibility grow even heavier. What had started as a search for justice Or perhaps revenge, for his father had become something far more complex. If Washington had discovered something worth killing him over, something that went higher than Victor Caston, what was it? And did Jordan know? Marcus picked up the basketball, feeling its familiar texture. Whatever Washington had discovered 30 years ago, whatever had gotten him killed, the truth was still out there. And whether Marcus published his article or not, that truth wouldn't stay buried forever. Someone had been watching from the shadows for decades, making sure of that. The Sports Chronicle newsroom was buzzing when Marcus arrived. Layla intercepted him at the elevator. "Where have you been?" the publisher called 3 times this morning. "We need to make a decision on your story." Marcus walked straight to his desk, Layla following. "I need to talk to Jordan again." "Again? You already had your exclusive meeting." "There's more to the story," Marcus said, playing Terrence's recording for her. When it finished, Layla sat on the edge of his desk, processing. "This changes things," she admitted. "If Washington discovered something bigger than Caston's operation, something that got him killed, then maybe Jordan doesn't know the full truth either." Marcus opened his laptop. "I need to see him again before we publish anything." Layla shook her head. "The publisher won't wait any longer. We're running something today, with or without a second Jordan interview." Marcus stared at her, then made a decision. "Tell him we need until tomorrow morning. One more day. He won't agree to that without something concrete. Then I'll give him something concrete." Marcus pulled up his draft article and quickly made changes. "A preview, just enough to show we have the story, but holding back the biggest revelations until we can verify everything." Layla read the revised draft. This focuses entirely on Jordan's 30 years of anonymous giving to gambling-affected families. It mentions Chicago Heights, but doesn't get into Washington's death or any potential mob connections. Exactly. It's true, it's verifiable, and it buys us one more day to get the full story right. Layla considered this. "I'll take it to the publisher, but Marcus, whatever you're planning, be careful. People have died over this." After she left, Marcus called the number on Natalie Jordan's business card. To his surprise, she answered immediately. "Mr. Gaines, I've been expecting your call. I need to see your uncle again." "Today." A pause. "That would be difficult to arrange. After your meeting yesterday?" "I have new information," Marcus interrupted. "Something Washington said before he died. Something that suggests your uncle might not know the whole truth about what happened." The silence stretched longer this time. "What kind of information?" "I'd rather discuss it with him directly." "That's not how this works, Mr. Gaines." "Fine. Then tell him I have Washington's last words on a recording. Tell him Washington said it goes higher than Caston. Tell him Washington was trying to reach him the night he died." Another long pause. "I'll see what I can do." 3 hours later, Marcus sat in Jordan's private office once again. This time, Jordan wasn't behind his desk. He stood by the window, looking out at the Chicago skyline. "You're persistent, Mr. Gaines. I'll give you that." "I want to get the story right," Marcus said. "All of it." Jordan turned from the window. "Natalie says you have a recording." Marcus played Terrence's phone. Message. Jordan listened without expression, but his eyes, those famously intense eyes, never left Marcus's face. When it ended, Jordan sat heavily in a chair. "I never heard that message. Terrence never told me about it." "He's dying. Cancer. He wanted the truth to come out before he's gone." "The truth," Jordan repeated. 30 years, and I still don't know the whole truth myself." He looked directly at Marcus. "Washington called me that night too. Left a similar message. Said he'd discovered something big, needed to talk right away. By the time I got the message, he was already dead. What do you think he found out? Jordan's jaw tightened. I've asked myself that question for 30 years. Best guess? He discovered who was really running the betting operation, who Kasten was working for. And who was that? I don't know for certain, but Washington once mentioned a man he called the Commissioner, someone with connections to both the Chicago outfit and city politics. Marcus leaned forward. A name? He never said, just the Commissioner. Jordan stood and walked to a cabinet, pulling out a file folder. After Washington died, I tried to investigate privately, hired people, found some things, but nothing conclusive. He handed the folder to Marcus. Inside were old surveillance photos, financial records, names and dates. Years of private investigation. You've been looking for Washington's killer all this time, Marcus realized. Without success. Whoever the Commissioner was, he knew how to cover his tracks. Marcus studied the documents. These might help identify him. Combined with Detective Harper's files, Terrence's testimony, it won't bring Washington back, Jordan interrupted. And it won't undo what happened in Chicago Heights. No, Marcus agreed, but it might finally bring the truth to light. Jordan was quiet for a long moment. There's something else you should know before you publish anything. Something I've never told anyone, not even Natalie. Marcus waited as Jordan seemed to weigh his words carefully. The night Washington died, I was supposed to meet him. He called, said he needed help, that he'd gotten in too deep. I was driving to see him when I got stuck in traffic from an accident on the expressway. Jordan's voice grew rough with emotion. If I'd gotten there 20 minutes earlier, he might still be alive. You can't know that, Marcus said quietly. What I know is that I failed him, and I've spent 30 years trying to make up for it by helping other families. Jordan looked at Marcus intently. Including yours. The directness of the statement hit Marcus like a physical blow. My father never knew, never suspected. That was the point. Anonymous help. No strings, no recognition. Marcus thought of his father's final years, bitter, angry, but with proper medical care in a decent home. All because of the man sitting across from him. Why are you telling me this now? Because whatever you decide to publish, you should know the whole truth, at least as much of it as I know. Jordan leaned forward. I've made peace with my part in this story, Mr. Gaines. The question is, have you? The question hung in the air between them. Marcus thought of his father, of the story he'd been pursuing for months, of the complex truth he'd discovered. Not the scandal he'd expected, but something far more human, more complicated. I'm publishing a story tomorrow, Marcus said finally, but maybe not the one I originally planned to write. Jordan nodded, understanding in his eyes. Whatever you decide, I won't try to stop you. The truth has been buried long enough. As Marcus left Jordan's office for the second time, the weight on his shoulders felt different. No longer the burden of exposure, but the responsibility of truth, messy, complicated, human truth. His father had been wrong about Jordan fixing NBA games, but there was still a mystery to solve, a killer who had never faced justice, and a story that needed to be told, even if it wasn't the one Marcus had set out to write. The next morning, Marcus arrived at the Sports Chronicle before dawn. The Harris newsroom was empty, just as he preferred. He needed clarity, space to make his final decision without distractions. His draft article waited on his computer, the story of Michael Jordan's secret 30-year mission to help families affected by gambling addiction. It mentioned Chicago Heights and Darius Washington, but without the sensationalism that could have destroyed Jordan's legacy. It was truthful, but selective. Was that journalism or protection? Marcus stared at the screen, remembering his father's face when the Bulls lost games he'd bet on. The anger, the confusion, the desperate certainty that something wasn't right. Jordan missed shots he makes in his sleep, he'd said over and over. His father hadn't been entirely wrong. Jordan had missed shots on purpose, just not in NBA games, and not for the reasons his father had believed. A soft chime from his email interrupted his thoughts. A message from Detective Harper, with an attachment labeled Chicago PD Internal. Memo, 1989. Marcus opened it and read quickly, his heart racing. It was a confidential memo from a senior police captain ordering Harper to close the Washington case, despite her objections. At the bottom was a handwritten note. Found this in my old case files. Notice the signature. Harper. The memo was signed. Commissioner Lawrence J. Sullivan. The commissioner, Marcus, searched the name online. Lawrence Sullivan had been a high-ranking police official in the late 1980s, later becoming Chicago Police Commissioner from 1990-1995. He died in 2012, lauded as a pillar of the community who had cleaned up corruption in the department. But, according to this memo, he'd shut down the investigation into Washington's death. Why? And was he the same commissioner Washington had mentioned in his final message? Marcus forwarded the email to Jordan, adding a simple message. I think I found the commissioner. Too late for justice, but not too late for truth. As sunrise brightened the windows, Layla arrived, looking surprised to find Marcus already at his desk. You're early, she observed. Final edits on the story? Something like that. Marcus gestured to the chair beside his desk. I need your opinion on something. As Layla sat, the elevator doors opened and Natalie Jordan stepped into the newsroom. Her usual composure seemed slightly shaken. Mr. Gaines, Ms. Vasquez. She approached Marcus's desk. I hope I'm not interrupting. You're exactly on time, Marcus said. I'm making my final decision about the story, and I'd like both your perspectives. He turned his screen so they could both see the article. Not the draft about Jordan's secret philanthropy, but a different one he'd written through the night. The headline read, The Commissioner's Shadow: How a Police Captain Buried a Murder Investigation and Protected a Chicago Gambling Ring. The story detailed everything: the Chicago Heights games, Washington's skimming from the mob, Jordan's attempts to help his friend, and most critically, evidence suggesting Police Commissioner Lawrence Sullivan had ordered Washington's death. Investigation closed to protect his connections to organized crime. Jordan was mentioned, but not as the central figure. Instead, he appeared as someone caught in a larger, darker web. A young athlete trying to save his friend, then spending decades anonymously helping others as atonement for his failure. When they finished reading, Layla spoke first. This is a completely different story than what we discussed. It's not about Jordan at all. It's about the truth, Marcus said. The whole truth, not just the parts about a famous athlete. It's a story about corruption, murder, and justice. Delayed, Natalie added quietly. My uncle is a part of it, but not the center. Layla studied Marcus. You realize this means giving up what could have been the biggest sports scandal story in decades? The one that would have made your career? I know. And you're okay with that? Marcus thought about his father, about Jordan, about Washington, about truth and justice, and what really mattered in the end. I am, he said simply. Layla nodded slowly. Then I'll take it to the publisher. But I should warn you, this is a very different story than what he's expecting. After she left, Natalie remained standing by Marcus's desk. "Thank you," she said softly. "I'm not doing this for your uncle," Marcus clarified. "I'm doing it because it's the truth." "I know." She hesitated. "My uncle asked me to give you something, regardless of what you decided to publish." She placed a small wooden box on his desk. Inside was a basketball keychain with the Bulls logo and a handwritten note. "Some debts can never be fully repaid, but we keep trying anyway. Thank you for understanding that. MJ." Marcus felt his throat tighten with unexpected emotion. "He also wanted you to know that he's establishing a public foundation for gambling addiction support," Natalie added, "in Darius Washington's name. He's hoping you might serve on the board." Before Marcus could respond, his phone buzzed with a text from Layla. "Publisher approved your story. Running tomorrow, front page." Natalie saw the message and smiled slightly. "It seems we both made the right decision." As she turned to leave, Marcus called after her, "The letter you sent to Detective Harper, why?" She paused. "Some secrets protect the guilty. Others just prolong the pain. It was time to let this one go." Left alone at his desk, Marcus held the keychain, turning it in his fingers. The story he would publish tomorrow wasn't the one he'd spent months pursuing. It wasn't about exposing a sports icon or validating his father's suspicions. Instead, it was about corruption, justice, and the complex ways humans try to atone for their failures. It was about a young basketball star who couldn't save his friend, about a police commissioner who buried a murder to protect his interests, about a reporter who discovered that truth is rarely what we expect it to be, and about how the greatest basketball player of all time had spent 30 years secretly helping families hurt by gambling, including the family of the reporter who would finally tell his story. Not the story Marcus had set out to write, but the one that needed to be told. The morning Marcus's story broke, Chicago awakened to headlines that shocked the city. Not about Michael Jordan's secret games in Chicago Heights, though that was part of it, but about Commissioner Lawrence Sullivan's buried investigation and mob connections. The Sports Chronicle's website crashed from the traffic. Every major news outlet picked up the story. By noon, the Chicago Police Department had announced a formal review of all cases Sullivan had supervised during his tenure. Marcus sat in Layla's office, watching the coverage unfold on her wall of screens. "You've started an earthquake," she said, handing him a cup of coffee. "The mayor just announced a special task force to investigate Sullivan's cases. The FBI is getting involved. And 3 families of suspected mob hits have already come forward, saying their cases were suspiciously closed under Sullivan's watch. What about the Jordan angle? That's what everyone expected. It's there, but it's not the headline." Layla smiled. "You gave Jordan exactly what he needed. Acknowledgement of his mistake and recognition of his atonement, without making him the villain." Marcus's phone had been ringing constantly all morning. He'd ignored most calls, but when it rang, again with Natalie Jordan's name on the screen, he answered. "My uncle would like to see you," she said, without preamble. "He's at the United Center. Can you come now?" The United Center was empty, except for a solitary figure standing at center court. Michael Jordan turned as Marcus's footsteps echoed through the vast arena. "Quite a story you wrote," Jordan said as Marcus approached. "The true one, I hope. As close as anyone's gotten in 30 years." Jordan bounced a basketball that had been sitting at his feet. The familiar sound reverberated through the empty stadium. "Sullivan. All these years, and I never knew his name. The man who protected Washington's killers. He can't face justice now," Marcus said. but his legacy is destroyed, and the cases he buried are being reopened. Jordan nodded, dribbling the ball slowly. Washington would have appreciated that. He was always talking about justice, even while he was breaking the rules himself. He passed the ball to Marcus. "You're a good writer, Mr. Gaines. You found the real story." Marcus caught the ball, feeling its familiar texture. "Not the one I expected to find." Life rarely gives us what we expect. Jordan gestured to the empty seats surrounding them. "When I played in this building, everything seemed so clear. Win or lose, hero or failure, black and white." He took the ball back from Marcus and shot it toward the basket. It swished through the net, just as it had thousands of times before. "Though, real world isn't that simple," Jordan continued. "In real life, good people make mistakes. They try to help and make things worse. They try to atone and wonder if it's ever enough." Marcus thought of his father, of the bitterness that had consumed him. "My father died believing he'd been cheated, that the games were fixed, that you were somehow responsible for his losses." "And how do you feel now, knowing the truth?" "I understand better," Marcus said carefully. "You made a mistake, trying to help your friend. My father made a mistake gambling away our future. You spent decades trying to make amends. He spent years blaming others." Jordan retrieved the ball. "We all find different ways to live with our failures. The foundation you're starting in Washington's name. Will it be public? Will people know it's you behind it?" "Yes. No more anonymity." Jordan dribbled the ball thoughtfully. "Your story made that possible. Now I can honor Washington's memory openly, without fear of exposing the past. The bad parts are already out there thanks to you. So are the good parts." They stood in silence for a moment. Two men connected by a 30-year-old tragedy and its rippling consequences. "There's one thing I still don't understand," Marcus finally said. "That day at the Drake Hotel, when I first confronted you, you seemed almost relieved, like you'd been waiting for someone to ask about Chicago Heights." Jordan smiled slightly. "Maybe I was. 30 years is a long time to carry a secret." He shot the ball again, another perfect swish. "Maybe I was tired of hiding the foundation's work, tired of anonymous giving, tired of the weight of it all. So my ambush was actually convenient?" "I wouldn't go that far," Jordan chuckled. "But when it happened, part of me thought, finally, now I can tell the truth." As they talked, the arena doors opened and a group of children entered with several adults, a youth basketball clinic about to begin their session. The kids stopped short, eyes widening at the sight of Michael Jordan, standing on the court. Jordan nodded to Marcus. "Duty calls. Can't disappoint the kids." As Jordan walked toward the awestruck children, Marcus called after him. "One last question. Why did you help my family specifically? Out of all the gambling cases, why us?" Jordan turned back. "Your father came to me once, right after Washington died, accused me of fixing games, said I'd ruined his life." His expression softened. "He had a photo of you in his wallet, showed it to me, said no matter what happened, he'd make sure his son had a better life." Marcus felt his throat tighten. "I never forgot that," Jordan said quietly. "A man who'd lost everything, but still cared most about his son. When I started helping families affected by gambling, yours was the first on my list." As Jordan joined the children, Marcus watched from the sidelines. The greatest basketball player of all time, showing kids how to dribble and shoot, his famous, competitive spirit softened by time and perspective. Marcus thought about the story he'd written, now spreading across the country. Not the scandal he'd expected to uncover, but something more valuable. A truth about human complexity, about mistakes and redemption, about the long shadow of the past and the possibility of atonement. His father had been wrong about the games being fixed, but he'd been right about one thing. There was a story there, waiting to be discovered, just not the one either of them had imagined. Outside the United Center, Marcus paused to look back at the statue of Michael Jordan frozen in his famous flight to the basket. The plaque read, "The best there ever was, the best there ever will be." True enough, Marcus thought, but incomplete. The real Michael Jordan was more complicated. A basketball legend who couldn't save his friend, who made a terrible mistake trying to help, and who spent 30 years trying to make it right. Flawed human being who, like all of us, was trying to balance the scales of his life. That was the story Marcus had told, not the one he'd set out to write, but the one that had been waiting for someone to tell it. The true one. 6 months after his story broke, Marcus stood in a small cemetery on the outskirts of Chicago. The autumn leaves crunched beneath his feet. As he approached a simple headstone, Darius Washington, 1963-1989, beloved friend. For 30 years, the grave had received few visitors. Today, it was surrounded by people. Terrence Willis in a wheelchair, Detective Harper standing respectfully to one side, Natalie Jordan in a dark coat, and Michael Jordan himself, tall and solemn in the afternoon sun. The occasion was both an ending and a beginning. The Darius Washington Foundation for Gambling Addiction Prevention had officially launched that morning with a press conference at the United Center. Now, its namesake was finally receiving a proper remembrance. "I never visited before," Jordan's said quietly as Marcus joined the small group. "Couldn't bring myself to face it." "Why now?" Marcus asked. "Because it's time," Jordan said simply. "Past time." The ceremony was brief but meaningful. Jordan spoke about his childhood friend, their basketball games in North Carolina, their dreams, their bond that had followed them to Chicago. He didn't shy away from the harder truths, Washington's gambling problems, the trouble he'd gotten into, the desperate circumstances that had led to his death. Darius made mistakes, Jordan told the small gathering. So did I. For 30 years, I've carried the weight of those mistakes. Today, I'm putting that weight down. When the short service ended, most of the attendees headed to their cars. Marcus lingered, watching as Jordan knelt by the headstone, placing a hand on it briefly, before standing. "Thank you for coming," Jordan said when he noticed Marcus waiting. "I wanted to pay my respects. Without Washington, there would have been no story." Jordan nodded. "Ironic, isn't it? He caused so much trouble in life. In death, he's helping people he never knew." They walked together toward the cemetery gates. The foundation's launch had been featured in every major news outlet. With Jordan's name and resources behind it, it would help thousands of families affected by gambling addiction. "How's Terrence doing?" Marcus asked, glancing back at the frail figure being helped to a car. The treatments bought him some time. 6 months, maybe a year. Jordan's expression was somber. He insisted on being here today. Said he owed it to Washington. As they reached Jordan's car, he turned to Marcus. "Your story changed things. Not just for me, but for a lot of people. The FBI has reopened 3 murder cases connected to Sullivan. Families have answers they've waited decades for." "And what about you?" Marcus asked. "How has it changed things for you?" Jordan considered the question. "I don't have to hide anymore. The foundation work, Washington's memory, my own mistakes, It's all in the open now. There's freedom in that. And the criticism? The people who still think you were more involved than you admitted? There will always be critics. Jordan shrugged. But the truth is out there now. The real truth. Not just rumors or accusations. Marcus thought about his own journey, from the angry son seeking justice for his father, to the reporter who discovered a more complex story than he'd imagined. "I visited my father's grave last week," Marcus said. "First time since the story broke. I told him everything I'd learned. About Washington, about Sullivan, about your help over the years." He smiled slightly. "I like to think he would have understood." "Maybe he would," Jordan agreed. "Sometimes we need distance to see things clearly." They reached Jordan's car where Natalie was waiting. Before getting in, Jordan extended his hand to Marcus. "You know, in all these months, we never properly introduced ourselves. I'm Michael." Marcus shook his hand. "Marcus Gaines." "I know." Jordan smiled. "I've been writing checks to your family for decades." As Jordan's car pulled away, Marcus remained standing by the cemetery gates. The story that had consumed his life for nearly a year was finally complete. The mystery had been solved. The truth revealed. Justice set in motion, even if delayed by 30 years. His phone rang. Layla from the Chronicle. "The Sullivan investigation just expanded," she said without preamble. "FBI is looking into 3 more cases from his time as commissioner. Your story is still growing legs?" "Good," Marcus said. "The truth deserves to come out, however long it takes." Speaking of truth, the Pulitzer Committee called. "Your piece is on the short list for next year." Marcus hadn't written the story for awards, but the recognition felt like validation of a different sort. Acknowledgement that journalism at its best wasn't about sensationalism or takedowns, but about complex, human truth. "One more thing," Layla added. "The publisher wants to know if you're interested in a book deal. The whole story, beginning to end." Marcus thought about it. Maybe. But not just about Jordan or Washington, about Sullivan, about the system that protected him, about all the families affected. "Of course, it's your story to tell." After hanging up, Marcus walked back to Washington's grave. The cemetery was empty now, the mourners gone. He stood silently, thinking about the young man whose death had set in motion 30 years of secrets, guilt, and quiet redemption. "Your friend kept his promise," Marcus said softly to the headstone. "He couldn't save you, but he's saved a lot of other people in your name." The autumn wind rustled the trees, sending more leaves spiraling down. Marcus placed a small basketball keychain, the one Jordan had given him, on top of the headstone. As he walked away, his phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. It contained only an address in North Carolina, and the words, "If you're writing that book, you might want to start at the beginning. This is where Michael and Darius first played basketball together." And Marcus smiled. Natalie Jordan was still helping him tell the story. The whole story, from beginning to end. The confrontation at the Drake Hotel seemed like a lifetime ago. What had started as an ambush journalist seeking a scandal had become something else entirely. An unlikely partnership that had brought hidden truths to light. Marcus had set out to expose a basketball legend's darkest secret. Instead, he'd discovered a story about friendship, failure, redemption, and the complicated ways humans try to make amends for their mistakes. Not the story he'd expected. But as he was learning, the most important stories rarely were. Sometimes the truth was found not in the accusation, but in the unexpected reaction it provoked. Not in the scandal, but in the human heart behind it. That was the real story. The one worth telling. Where are you listening from today? I'd love to hear in the comments below. If you enjoyed this emotional journey exploring Michael Jordan's 30-year secret, please like this video and subscribe to the channel for more compelling stories, just like this one. Don't forget to share with friends and family who might appreciate this tale of redemption, forgiveness, and the complex truth behind public personas. Your shares help spread awareness about the importance of looking beyond headlines and understanding the human stories that connect us all. Thank you for listening, and I'll be back next week with another story that will touch your heart and challenge your perspectives.